If you're in perimenopause and all of a sudden your emotions feel all out of whack and you're not sleeping well, and all of a sudden you have anxiety and overwhelm that seems through the roof, you might be tempted to do what a lot of people do and go to their doctors and do hormone replacement and, try to fix it from that angle. And there's nothing wrong with that. If that works for you, I'm going to talk to you about the aspect that I think a lot of times is missed with a lot of the women that I see. And so, hi, my name is Rochelle Walsh, and I've been a complex trauma therapist for many years, and I have an online program for women called Joyful and Present. So one of the things that's really important to understand about hormones, and I'm going to talk about this from a mental health perspective. I'm not a physician. Again, I'm a complex trauma therapist. I've specialized in brain-based strategies for many years. And one of the things that I often see is, for instance, so women, right? We know that hormones definitely impact a lot of things. We see that around our cycle. We see that postpartum, and we see that again with hormonal shifts at a perimenopausal age, which I am one. But not every woman that has baby has postpartum. Not every woman that goes through perimenopause also gets, anxiety and all of those things, like in the emotional realm. Oftentimes women go and all of a sudden they're diagnosed with adult ADHD when having never really had ADHD before. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about why that is and why I think it's important to look at other aspects, because many of the women I talk about, they say, I've done all the diet changes. I changed my diet. I did hormones. My doctor put me on this medication. I didn't like how it made me feel. I've done talk therapy. I've read all the self-help books. I've been in the Bible studies, and they don't know what is going on. And I'm going to talk to you about why. So a lot of women they might have a level of hypervigilance and stress that's really been there, for many, many years. And maybe they never really even recognized themselves as having anxiety or being in a high state of stress because it was performance-based. So they were able to channel all that stress into perfectionism, people-pleasing, taking care of others, high performance. So their mind had a place to go. So one of the reasons that these kinds of things seem to get harder, and then all of a sudden they hit a certain age and they're getting body symptoms, they're getting more headaches, they're getting maybe GI issues, again, sleep disturbances, lack of focus, they don't have clarity, they're getting a lot of brain fog, and they assume because they're a certain age that it's happening just because they're a certain age. And so, but correlation is not always causation, because again, not everybody that goes through perimenopause is going to have those symptoms. But if someone has had that state of hypervigilance and high stress, chronic stress that gets channeled into taking care of others and worrying about all the things and planning and having high control in their life and, being, living in overdrive, when hormonal changes happen, those things get exacerbated, right? Because stress impacts hormones in our body. So hormones aren't just caused by our female cycles, but what happens with a chronic fight or flight response is a stress response. And so things around that time is also correlates with things changing in life. Kids are getting older. Kids have maybe left the house. We're thinking, oh my goodness, I'm a certain age, and what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Or maybe they've slowed down at work, and now that they've slowed down, the busyness of their mind doesn't have any place to go. And so they're stuck ruminating and feeling a restlessness. And now that they have more time, it becomes harder to relax. And maybe actually relaxing doesn't feel safe. Maybe it's never felt safe. Maybe they've always felt safe by the things they were doing and the things they were performing and when they were kind of super engaged and busy in life. So that's one thing, is that those perimenopause changes also go along with other life stage change. Another reason that this can happen is because simply the length of time that they've been carrying it. So I could have a weighted backpack, and even though I don't do that on a regular basis, if I had a weighted backpack, I could walk around my neighborhood, but I would be okay, but what if I tried to walk around my neighborhood 10 times? And so chronic stress, not just the intensity of it, but the duration of it. So the longer our system is in a state of chronic stress, even if we're not recognizing it as that, but we have that constant sense of urgency. Our mind is always going. We're always on to the next thing. We have a hard time shutting down. We don't get into deep restorative sleep and have really good self-care patterns around stillness. It can just get harder and harder to carry that, because then that prolonged stress impacts things like our gut health and headaches and inflammation in our body that then causes autoimmunity. So basically, the longer this inflammation goes on in the body, in the nervous system, the more widespread the impact. And then we have other things that, like hormonal shifts or a loss, a grief, a big life transition, something happening. And it's like we surpass our threshold and, everything feels out of control. So again, life changes, the prolonged nature of it. And then again, I think sometimes, there is, I know, oftentimes there are things that have been suppressed for many years. So maybe the person just learned to kind of cope, even again, unknowingly, with stress by taking care of things or doing something, or by stuffing or avoiding, or by pleasing or performing or shopping or scrolling, whatever it may be. There's been patterns of suppressing emotions. And maybe when this isn't a lack of intelligence, but maybe early on in childhood, maybe they didn't have an adult who was really attuned, who helped them learn to walk through big emotions. So they instinctively learn to be very adaptive and suppress emotions. So again, as we go through life, suppressed emotions are held in the body. And that stress then serves to kind of keep that at bay. But when someone gets to the place where they're like, wow, I need to fix this. I'm overwhelmed. I can't think. I can't sleep. I can't shut my mind off. I feel antsy in my body. And they try to calm that. What happens is these emotions coming up, right? They feel overwhelming. And so they don't want the floodgates to open because they just instinctively know that it feels too big. So again, it's kind of a catch-22 because the stress, the very thing that they're wanting to get out of, is the thing that protects them from what they feel like are emotions that are too big. Again, big life transitions have big emotions that come up. Kids graduating from high school, kids graduating from college, moving on, in-laws, aging parents. So perimenopause is kind of the perfect storm a lot of times for these things to come to the surface because of the duration, because of the life season, because of the way it impacts hormones. And so one of the things that's super important to know if this, resonates with you is that here's the downfall of talk therapy. And again, I was a complex trauma therapist for many, many years. I highly value therapy. I did EMDR. I love people. I love working with people to release from trauma. But one of the limitations of talk therapy is that all these patterns that we're talking about, patterns of chronic stress, patterns of emotional suppression, those things that were built in through repetitious experiences. So there's deep subconscious core beliefs. There are, emotional firing, sensations in the body. There's belief patterns. There's experiences. There's memories. There's many things like just that are stored in that subconscious. And when we go and talk about them, right, what we are relaying to another person comes from the cognitive part of our brain. So we're having discussion, we're trying to relay an idea to a person. We may get valuable insights. We may feel seen for the first time. We may have someone validate our experience, and all that can be very powerful. But then what happens is we go back to real life. So no matter how great the insights, no matter how encouraging, if it doesn't change something in the way we move through everyday life, those locked in patterns in the subconscious remain unchanged. So many women that I work with have libraries of self-help books. They're intelligent women. They've been to therapy. They know God's word. And so it's not a lack of intellect, but there is a lack of being able to get to that subconscious material and condition it differently, which takes daily practice. Daily practice. So if you go to therapy and on a day-to-day basis, nothing changes, then nothing changes. And 90% of people don't change those locked in paradigms. Those who do these things. One is they have to decide that there's more for them and they don't have to stay stuck like that. And they're actually willing to do something different. Two is they need to do it in a way that they are conditioning themselves on a daily basis to experience something new. And they have to do that for a length of time that allows those new neural pathways to not only be established, like, oh, it's a good idea, now I understand this, but that really reinforces that again and again and again through thought, word, action, emotion, stillness. So to get to those subconscious programs, we have to first calm. Because if we're in fight or flight, that rushed, frantic, high beta wave state, we can't get to subconscious material. And when we do gain awareness and get to subconscious material, we need to do things repetitiously that really recondition that and secure that so that we can experience a new norm. If you're going through perimenopause and you feel like your hormones are causing a bunch of upheaval of emotional disturbance, anxiety, things like that. Another thing that happens is they start feeling depressed. And they don't understand that oftentimes if someone is in chronic stress for a long time, that they're now going into kind of a freeze state, right? That depression, ongoing anxiety leads to depression. So if all of a sudden these things are coming up and you think, oh no, it's my hormones, and you get help for your hormones and you don't get relief, you should not feel discouraged thinking that you're just going to have to live like this and that this is just what this last or next season of life looks like for you, because it doesn't have to. Right? It does not have to. 75% of the women I work with are, in perimenopause, right? The rest are probably younger than that, but perimenopause or menopausal, and they come in with the same hormones that they leave with. In terms of those hormones, like I don't have anything in my program specifically, though my husband does some epigenetic stuff and sometimes people work with him on health related stuff. But through my program, when we do the nervous system regulation, I'm not doing any shifts in hormonal, and yet they get great results. But if you've done hormone replacement and that's fixed it for you, then maybe that was the problem. If you've done hormones, or you can look back and say, yes, I have had chronic stress, or I have had other seasons in my life where this thing has come up, then it's worth really exploring whether or not it's really the hormones or whether or not there's an underlying issue that's exacerbating those changes that your body's going through. Because I believe that, we can still have very vibrant lives post 50. And so we don't have to just give in to thinking that this is my new reality now that I'm going through, hormonal changes. So I hope that's helpful. If you're interested in knowing how I help women through nervous system regulation, core belief reprogramming and emotional regulation. I do that in a 90-day, very high-level training, high-level support coaching program called Joyful and Present. I'll put the link in the comments below. I hope that's helpful, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.